$240. That is what I handed the garden center every single year, and my lawn still looked worse by August. Picture the morning, early Saturday. The coffee is warm, the dew is still sitting on the grass, the mower is out and ready. Everything feels right. Then I look down, yellow patches. Again, the same tired corner by the fence, the same pale, thinning ring I swore I had fixed last summer. And here is the quiet villain in this story. The bag. The label. The lawn treatment aisle that quietly profits every time your grass fails, because a lawn that keeps dying is a customer who keeps coming back. For years I ran that loop like clockwork. Buy the bag, spread it, water it in, wait. Watch half of it scorch and the rest fade to the color of straw, then drive back to the store and buy more of the exact same thing. Most people believe a struggling lawn is a hungry lawn, so they feed it harder, they buy more fertilizer, they spread it thicker than the label says, they water it like they are trying to drown it, and nothing changes. The patches come back on schedule. So, in this video, I am going to show you two things I got badly wrong. First, how you actually feed a lawn and why the bag lies to you. Second, how watering and mowing quietly decide whether any of it works at all. And there is one final method, an old one, the thing that finally broke my cycle, that I am not going to name until the end, because it is the entire reason this video exists. I still remember the spring I gave up. It was a wet April, and I was kneeling by that fence corner with an empty bag in my hand, watching the grass die in the one spot I had fed the most. That was the moment I understood I had been doing something backwards for years. So let me ask you one simple question, and be honest. What if the fertilizer you are buying is being locked out of your soil before a single blade of grass ever gets to use it? Part 1 is the most common heartbreak in any yard, and it is the one that costs me the most money, so we start there. It is the pale, patchy, hungry-looking lawn that never seems to fill in, no matter how much you feed it. Here is the small mystery that took me years to solve. Why did the same fertilizer make one part of my lawn greener and another part worse? What you instinctively do makes total sense. The grass looks weak, so you feed it. The bag says feed 4 times a year, so you feed 4 times a year. It feels responsible. It feels like caring for the lawn. I did it for the better part of a decade, and I felt like a good, diligent homeowner every time I did. But here is the truth. What is actually happening beneath your feet is a chemistry problem, not a hunger problem. Grass can only pull nutrients out of the soil when the soil sits in a narrow acidity window, a pH between roughly 6.0 and 7.0. When your soil drifts too acidic or too alkaline, the nitrogen and iron and phosphorus you paid for get chemically locked to the soil particles. The grass cannot reach them, so you spread $40 of fertilizer, and a huge share of it just sits there, useless, or washes away in the next rain. Let me be very clear about what that means. If your soil pH is off, feeding more does nothing but waste money and burn the grass you have left. The nutrients are already there. The lock is the problem, not the supply. That one idea flipped everything for me. My lawn was not starving. It was locked out of its own pantry. So here is what to do, from the simplest step to the one that actually fixes it. The first thing, and the cheapest, is to stop guessing. Get a soil test. A proper test kit from your local agricultural extension service costs somewhere between $12 and $20, and it tells you your exact pH and exactly which nutrients you are missing. I wasted hundreds of dollars over the years to avoid a test that cost me $15. Do not make my mistake. The next step depends on what that test says. If your soil is too acidic, and in a lot of older lawns it is, you correct it with garden lime. A common rate is around 50 pounds of lime per 1,000 square feet to nudge the pH up over a season, but your test tells you the real number for your yard. If your soil is too alkaline, you use elemental sulfur instead to bring it down. This is the step almost nobody in the garden aisle mentions, because lime and sulfur are cheap and they do not need to be repurchased every few weeks, and only after the lock is open does feeding actually pay off. When your pH is right, You need far less fertilizer because the grass can finally reach what is already in the ground. I went from 4 heavy feedings a year to 2 light ones, and the lawn looked better, not worse. Because here is what is truly at stake if you keep getting this wrong. It is not just wasted money, though the money adds up fast. It is that burning fertilizer onto locked soil actually damages the roots and thins the turf, which opens bare ground, and bare ground is where weeds move in. You do not just fail to fix the lawn, you make it easier for the next problem to take hold. But fixing the chemistry is only half the battle, because I did all of this correctly 1 year and still watched my lawn struggle in the heat, and that led me straight into the second mistake, the one hiding in the 2 things you do most often. Part 2 is about the damage you do with the mower and the hose, which is a completely different problem, because you can have perfect soil and still wreck a lawn with bad habits. And here is the blunt truth I did not want to hear. Most of the harm in an average lawn is not caused by neglect. It is caused by care done the wrong way. The universal mistake here is cutting the grass too short. We have all done it. You cut it low because you want to mow less often, and a short lawn looks tidy and clean for a day or 2. It feels efficient. It feels like winning back a weekend. But here is the mechanism, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The length of a grass blade above the ground is directly tied to the depth of the roots below it. Short blades grow short roots. When you scalp the lawn down to 1 inch, you are also shrinking the root system down to a shallow, fragile mat that sits right at the surface. Then the first hot, dry week arrives, that top inch of soil bakes, and the shallow roots have nothing to fall back on. The lawn goes brown, and you blame the weather. So let me give you the methods from the cheapest floor to what I would reach for now. Method 1 costs you nothing but a small adjustment. Raise your mower deck. For most common lawns, cutting it around 3 inches or 3.5 in the heat of summer is the single best free thing you can do. Taller grass shades the soil, keeps it cooler, holds moisture longer, and grows those deeper roots that survive a drought. Taller grass also shades out weed seeds so they never sprout. That one change did more for my lawn than any bag I ever bought. Method 2 is the 1/3 rule, and it is about how much you take off, not just how high you leave it. Never remove more than 1/3 of the blade height in a single mow. When you cut off more than that, you shock the plant, it stops growing roots, and it dumps its energy into just staying alive. So if your grass is tall, bring it down over 2 mows a few days apart, not all at once. It sounds fussy. It is the difference between grass that recovers and grass that sulks for a month. Method 3 is how you water, and this is where I wasted more water and more money than I want to admit. Most people water a little bit every day, usually in the evening. It feels caring. It is quietly terrible. Light daily watering only wets the top of the soil, so the roots stay shallow to chase it, and the surface stays damp all night, which is an open invitation for fungus and disease. Here is the fix. Water deeply and infrequently. Most lawns want about 1 inch of water per week, delivered in 1 or 2 long soakings, not 7 little sips. 1 inch soaks down deep and pulls the roots down after it. And you do it early in the morning, so the blades dry in the sun and the water goes into the ground instead of evaporating off in the afternoon heat. Now, how do you know when you have put down 1 inch? This is the trick that made it real for me. Set a few empty tuna tins or straight-sided cups around the lawn while the sprinkler runs, and time how long it takes to fill them to 1 inch. On my yard, it was about 40 minutes. Now I know my number, and I never guess again. Think about what these 3 habits cost you when they go wrong. Shallow roots, fungus in the damp, a lawn that collapses the moment July gets hot. You can pour money into the soil all you want, but if you scalp it and drown it, you are undoing the good with your own 2 hands. If this is already changing how you see your own yard, do me one small favor and subscribe right now. This channel is for people who want the mechanism. Nobody in the garden aisle will ever explain to you the why underneath the what. And if you want to go deeper than any single video can take you, I put everything I learned about soil, roots, and the old methods into a series of guides called the Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition. These are the frameworks I wish I had held in my hands 10 years ago before I wasted all that money on the wrong things. You can find a link to all three in the description below for $97, and it is the closest thing I know to having someone sit down and walk you through the whole system from the ground up. That is the whole point of what I do here, and I do not want you to miss the next one. That is all I will ask. Now, back to it. Because there's one more thing, and this is the piece I promised at the very start. Fixing your pH stops the waste. Fixing your mowing and watering builds the roots, but both of those are things you keep having to manage. What I really wanted was something that made the lawn take care of itself, so the problem stopped coming back at all. And that is exactly what the old-timers knew that the product companies would rather you forgot. Part 3, prevention. The one method that ended my cycle for good is top dressing with compost, and I want to explain exactly why it works, because on the surface it sounds far too simple to matter. Here is the mechanism in one sentence. Your grass does not actually feed on fertilizer directly. It feeds on what the living microbes in the soil release, and a thin layer of compost pours billions of those microbes and a slow, steady trickle of nutrients right into the root zone where they belong. Synthetic fertilizer feeds the plant for a few weeks and then it is gone. Compost feeds the soil, and healthy soil feeds the plant every single day on its own for free. The material is just finished compost, the dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling kind, either your own or a bag from the garden center. The method is almost embarrassingly easy. Once a year, ideally in spring or early autumn, you spread a thin layer of compost over the lawn, only about 1/4 of an inch deep, and you rake it down so it settles between the blades and reaches the soil. You are not burying the grass, you are dusting it. That 1/4 inch is the whole secret. And this is the part that got me. This is not a new trick. This is how people kept lawns and meadows and pastures green for centuries before a single bag of synthetic fertilizer ever existed. They fed the soil with what they had, then the products arrived, promised a shortcut, and buried the old method under a shelf of colorful bags. But the gardeners who never stopped top dressing never stopped having the best lawns on the street, and now you have it too. Here is what it saves you. Once your soil is alive and feeding itself, you can cut your fertilizer use by half or more, and a good compost habit can put back a real share of the nitrogen your lawn needs every year for the price of a bag of compost, or nothing at all if you make your own. For me, that turned $240 a year of treatment into a fraction of it, and the lawn looked better than it ever did when I was spending the most. So let me match this to you quickly so you know where to start. If you have a small yard and a tight budget, start with the soil test and the mowing height, because those two cost almost nothing and fix most of it. If you have a bigger lawn that dries out and browns every summer, your win is in the deep watering and the taller cut that grow drought-proof roots. And if you are tired of the whole cycle and you just want the lawn to run itself, go straight to the yearly compost top dressing, because that is the one that makes the other problems stop coming back. Now, the moment you start top dressing and building living soil, you are going to hit a new problem, and I want you ready for it. That thick, healthy, deep-rooted lawn will start to build up a spongy brown layer between the grass and the soil, and if you let it get too thick, it chokes the very lawn you worked so hard to grow. It is called thatch, and managing it is the next skill you will need. If you are already seeing a spongy, springy feel underfoot when you walk your lawn, leave me a comment and just type the word thatch so I know how many of you are hitting it, and I will know to make that video next. Because here is what this really comes down to. A green, thick, living lawn was never something you were supposed to rent from a store one bag at a time. It was something you were meant to grow yourself from the soil up, the way people did long before anyone thought to sell it back to you. So subscribe if you are not already, because the next video shows you exactly how to break down that thatch layer without tearing your lawn apart, and I do not want you to solve one problem only to get ambushed by the next. Stick with me, and this time next year, your lawn takes care of itself. I'm glad you stayed to the end. This video gave you the overview, but inside the Amish Garden Circle, I take it further, correcting your soil pH step by step for your own yard, right where we left off. And in there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen and you can cancel anytime. Now that you're saving money on your lawn, let me show you how to stop those weeds for good without all that painful bending and pulling. It's a simple 1-minute trick, and it's starting right here.